Welcome everybody to the latest edition of Month-Long Exposure, my regular video where I look back over the last calendar month's worth of photography and pull out my favourite images from those weeks and share them with you here and talk a little bit about them. Just a handful of images, I think, looking here on the computer screen, I've got 6 this month. So without further ado, let's get into them. So this first image I shared on Substack. In fact, I think I pretty much have shared all of these on Substack, but this one was right back at the beginning of the month, actually. It was on the 2nd of February. It was taken here in town. I was out doing some errands one day, and it was a bit of a damp day, but I sort of came through onto the high street opposite one of the many coffee shops and bakeries we have in town, and I spotted this scene. This coffee shop in question is quite renowned for having quite misty windows when there's lots of people in there. And the way the light was falling on it was kind of highlighting this gentleman sitting there in the window drinking his coffee. This is actually a phone capture, if memory serves. I can just check here. Yes, it was from the other side of the street. Although I had a proper camera with me, I didn't have the reach and excuse me, and I didn't want to get right in close to disturb him at all. So yeah, I used my phone from the other side of the street and captured the scene. I've got a few that I took here, but I particularly like this one because he's obviously having a drink and sort of looking away up the street at life passing him by. So yeah, quite enjoy that one. The next one was actually from Cambridge. So quite often when I go into Cambridge, I tend to take the train rather than drive, and I'll take a kind of meandering wander between the train station where I'm going, just making up. I think this was actually in the centre of town, actually, and I was drawn to this particular scene. And what I like about this photo is the contrasts of textures and shapes and patterns and colours and all sorts. Obviously, it's a black and white scene, but that contrast of the kind of bike and the drain pipe against the central column there of the building where the paint's all flaking off it, and then obviously the detail down the middle of it, which is quite well preserved with the kind of pattern and stuff on it, the flowery pattern on it. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this. Again, I've got a number of different compositions, landscape and portrait, but ultimately I preferred the portrait one because it was focusing more in on those central elements, I think, which drew me in, namely the bike and the pattern on the pillar. So again, a detailed shot. Next one is a nocturnal shot. I think I mentioned on the last couple of videos I've been doing a kind of nocturnal photography project this winter, making the most of the longer nights and getting out with my camera or my phone as I'm walking around or as I'm running. And this one again was after a works meeting. I was heading back towards the car and came across this sort of little, it wasn't square, but it was this sort of little area where there was a cafe. Behind this shop there's a cafe with some chairs, and I spent some time there photographing those, all sort of stacked up with the kind of urban light and the street lamps and stuff falling upon them. But there's this particular scene here I quite liked with this off-licence tobacconists opposite, which was obviously well illuminated. And then there were these no entry signs across the road, and I just like the way they kind of sequence themselves out. So obviously having the bollard and the no entry sign with its own lighting in the foreground, then falling off into the building in the background, which is largely in shadow apart from the illumination from the shop window itself, and another no entry sign on the far side there as well. You've also got the detail of the paving in the bricks, which I thought was quite interesting as well. Again, as with most things, a number of different compositions here, some wider, some tighter, but this was one of my favourite from that day. Later in the month now, this was I've been doing another project. It's been running for nearly a year now, actually, called Light Around the Home, which is where I take shots in and around the home, as the name would suggest, looking at the interesting patterns of light and the way the light are falling on things. I've kind of extended that a bit, so whenever I go away somewhere, like in a hotel or wherever I'm staying, then somewhere new is always fascinating with these things. And my wife and I stayed somewhere middle of February, and yeah, there was just shots everywhere. Everywhere I looked, there were shots. And this is the sofa in the sort of living area, I suppose, taken in the morning with the light. Just off to the right of the shot, there's a blind that's sort of half open and the sunlight sort of falling underneath it into the room. And I just love the way it was sort of falling over the corner of this sofa, and providing some element of illumination on the wallpaper in the background, and obviously the quite strong lines of the carpet underneath. Again, so many to choose from on that day, but yeah, I particularly like this one, I think, as well, because of the sense of depth you get in it as well, with the lines of the carpet falling away. Another nocturnal one. This one was completely impromptu, actually, and is again taken with my phone. Surprisingly, but a lot of people have been asking me how I take my nighttime shots, and actually, yeah, a lot of instances I'm just using my phone, shooting in RAW on the phone, and then post processing them. Probably should write a bit more about that on my Substack. I'd actually dropped my son at football training, my eldest son at football training, and had some time to kill, and just completely on a whim, just decided to go for a wander with my phone. And the local church in the village where he was doing his football training has a series of footpaths that wind through it, which have a series of street lights on them. So there was lots of interesting light around this church. So again, I probably spent most of the hour just in and around the church taking photographs. But again, this was one of my favourite shots from that scene. So this is actually leading up to one of the doors. There were two doors into this, well, multiple doors into this church, but they were actually there was a door in the foot of the tower, and there was kind of what I would have thought was the main front entrance, which is actually almost just out of shot to the right here. But again, I like the way that the path was sort of curving up to that door, illuminated by the lamp there on the wall, which was also then touching on the tree beside it. It was just after sunset as well, so you can see the sky in the background is still illuminated. It's creating that silhouette of the building beyond as well. So again, with the nocturnal photography, what I really enjoy is the way you get the fall off of light, that sort of hints at what's there, and you get little sort of vignettes or little sort of teasers of patterns and shapes and stuff, like the leaves in the tree, and again the way the wall, the light on the church tower itself. Again, it just sort of disappears off. You know, I know it's a church tower because I was photographing. I guess you could arguably say, if I hadn't told you, then you might not realise that wall is actually disappearing right up into the distance as well. So, and then final shot. Then this is back in Cambridge. This is just a couple of weeks ago. There's an old graveyard right in the centre of Cambridge, just off Mill Road, which I stumbled upon a few weeks back, actually, when I was doing a wander back to the station, and I paid another visit there on the way back as well, just to see what else I could find. It's more of a, I mean, it obviously is still a graveyard, but it's not in use. As in, I don't, they're not burying people in it now, so it's largely quite old and ornate gravestones that are there, and it's almost more like a park now, with to cycle way through the middle of it, plenty of benches for people to sit. But as you wander around it, it's quite overgrown in places, but you can find some really interesting gravestones and the such like. And I found this one right on the boundary of the park itself. And what I really like about this is the contrast, I guess, between the newer building on the back, and it's not that new a building, but it considerably newer than the grave or the monument in front of it, and then obviously the monument itself, with all the kind of overgrown aspects around it, the wall behind it, you can see with the ivy growing all over it. Yeah, I really like that, those sort of contrast. And also you got the kind of contrast in shapes and lines, with the modern building being very, vertical and horizontal lines, and obviously the actual monument itself being much more ornate, with, the sort of different shapes and curves and stuff of it as well. So anyway, A little bit quicker maybe this week or this month than previously, and apologies for those who've been waiting. I realise it's a bit later than normal. I think the last few I've done right at the beginning of the month, but life got in the way, so I thought I'd slip it a week, but better late than never, as they say. So yes, there's my selection of photos from February 2026. Probably should have said that at the outset, just for clarity. And yeah, so many more. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, I would encourage you to go and have a look at my Substack, where I share shots like this and scenes like these on an almost daily basis. I have a weekly photo series, I guess, that complements this. I call Photo Week, where I share my favourite photos from the previous week, and I just, that's obviously sharing the static images. And then there's a longer form post each Sunday as well, generally around photography or photography related subjects. So thank you ever so much for joining me. Nice. Hope you're finding these of interest. I'm definitely enjoying doing them. It's another way for me to share my photography, and yeah, I will see you again in a few weeks' time with my favourite images from March. Take care.